I have been wanting to make this video for at least the past 3 weeks or so. It's been on my mind. It's been something I've been wanting to do, and I'm finally bringing it to you about why everyone is broke. Because I feel like this is one of the most perfect times in history to make a video like this, because it kind of applies to more people than ever before. And it's kind of crazy that we live in probably the richest country in the world, arguably, United States, but yet more people than ever are more broke than ever. At first glance, people from other countries are probably looking at us like, how is that even possible? How can somebody that makes 50, 60 grand a year be broke? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, especially when you compare to countries where people are lucky to make, 50 bucks a month or whatever. So people look at us like, how can somebody who makes that much money be broke? Well, today I'm going to give you guys a ton of reasons that I think are contributing to why everyone is broke. And before you say, well, I'm not broke, I make $200,000 a year and I have this and that, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people that are living paycheck to paycheck, that are really struggling in the richest country in the world. And one of the main culprits of this, that you can really boil it down to this from the very beginning to childhood, is there is no financial education, guys. I mean, just think about it. When you went to school, we learned how to do math, we learned how to read and write. You start learning about money at some point in math class. They teach you how to make change. If something costs $5 and you give them a $10 bill, how much are you gonna get back? Simple stuff like that, of course, which is just basic math. But they don't teach you how to use money. They don't teach you how to make money. They don't teach you the best ways to make money. They don't teach you how much money you might need in order to survive or live a good life. You don't learn anything like that. And to make matters worse, if you live in a broke household where your parents are living paycheck to paycheck, or they didn't get taught anything about money from their parents, then you're basically doomed to fall into the same traps that they did. And if your parents are $20,000 in debt and live paycheck to paycheck, there's a high probability that you might end up like that. Just like if your parents are smokers, then there's a higher probability you're gonna end up as a smoker. Now, some people run the totally opposite direction with this, and they say, I don't wanna be like my parents, I don't wanna be broke, I want to have stuff in life, and they use that as motivation to get ahead in life, which is smart, that's the way to do it. But unfortunately, it's not what happens to most people. So I really wanted to start this video out pretty much making sure that this probably isn't your fault, because if you grew up here in the US, then probably never learned anything about money until you really had to, when you got out into the real world, got a real job, and had to start paying for real bills. Prior to that, probably didn't know much about money at all, and even then, you might still be struggling. And for me, one of the things that changed my mind about money the most was the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When I read that book, not only did it open my mind up of why it's important to own real assets like real estate and gold and silver and have cash, to be able to buy things, but also there was a phrase in this book that I will never forget. Actually, two key phrases stick out in my mind from this book. Instead of saying to yourself when you want something, I can't afford that, you should change that up to saying, how can I afford that? And all that is it's a simple mindset shift that teaches you to think about money differently, instead of just thinking, oh, I'm limited, I only make, 15 bucks an hour, and I just can't afford that house or that car, or I'm never gonna be able to take that vacation, whatever. Instead of saying stuff like that to yourself, you say, how can I afford that? You have to reverse engineer your life from the things that you want. Figure out how much money you need to make in order to have these things, and you work backwards from there. And that was a real key turning point for me when I understood that. And the other one was, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. And that really applies to everybody, and you can see this from the people that earn $200,000 a year and are living paycheck to paycheck and broke, versus somebody maybe making $60,000 a year but only has $30,000 in expenses and is able to save that 30 grand every single year. That person is going to make it so much further ahead than the person making $200,000 a year that spends everything and then some. So little mindset shifts like that can really make all the difference of where you come out ahead in life with money. And that's one of the reasons that everyone is broke, because they don't learn these simple things. But moving away from the mindset stuff and more into the practical day-to-day reasons why everybody's broke, here's a big one. People are not ready for unexpected expenses. And we know this just from looking at the statistics, how 70% of Americans couldn't afford like a $600 emergency. That is insane, okay? And that's a small emergency. A $600 emergency is my car broke down, you know? What happens if you end up in the hospital and you have $10,000 in medical expenses? Or what happens if you're going through a divorce and you have to pay alimony or child support, or give up half of everything you own? Those are unexpected expenses that can really cost you. So most people are not ready for things like that. And we talk about this all the time here on the channel, about getting out of debt, saving extra money, and just being ready for what's coming with this economy right now. And the more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be. Even if nothing comes crashing down and burning, then great. You're over prepared, which means you're in a far better position to make strides in life. So being prepared financially for things is never a bad thing. Now here's a big one that a lot of people fall into this trap, and that is lifestyle inflation. Just look at these houses around me, guys. All these houses cost $2 million and up, basically. But at some point, the people that live in these houses, you think they started out with this $2 million house? No. They probably bought a $250,000 house, sold it for, $400,000. They bought the $400,000 house next, and then they moved up to an $800,000 house, and then eventually they made it into the $2 million house. But let's face it, no one needs a $2 million house, right? Nobody. If shelter is shelter, a place to live that you have the lights that work and the water that runs, and it's safe and comfortable, that's all you really need. Nobody needs a $2 million house. But yet, people, the more money they make, the more they end up spending. And that's all lifestyle inflation is. It really boils down to that. And that is one of the key things that, at least I can speak from experience, that has helped me get ahead in life. Because even though I've lived here in Miami for 15 years, which is a very expensive city, for a very long time, I was able to keep my personal monthly expenses at or below $3,000 a month, guys. That's it, to live in an expensive place like this. Now today, it is a little more than that, but I also make more to compensate, and I'm still able to save a lot of the income that I make. I still keep it as simple as possible. I don't have a luxurious lifestyle, I don't need to go out and spend money on $300 dinners twice a week, or go to the luxury spas and hotels around here and live it up. Like, I don't even have a desire to do that. In fact, one of the things I like the most is just being out here, walking around, getting some fresh air, talking to you guys. This is fun for me. No matter how much I make, I feel like this is always going to be enjoyable for me. And I'm still going to enjoy the things that I've been enjoying for the last 35 years of my life. And those things aren't going to all of a sudden become obsolete just because I make more money. But a lot of people don't do that. What they do is, I got a $10,000 raise this year, I'm going to go buy a new car. I got a $10,000 raise this year, let's take that expensive vacation we've always been wanting. And they just find a way to spend the extra money instead of find a way to save it or invest it. A really big one that we've been talking about a lot lately is people have a ton of bad debt. And there's a difference between good debt and bad debt, which is another lesson from the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. And basically, bad debt is debt that costs you money, and good debt is debt that makes you money. So for example, bad debt are things like having credit card balances, having things like personal loan balances, having student loans, having home equity loans. Those are debts that cost you money every single month, and you're never going to get that money back. Versus a good debt would be something like you borrow money to buy a house that produces a positive income every month, and even though the debt costs you $500 a month, the house is making $700 a month. So now you're making $200 a month. So you're leveraging the debt to make yourself extra money. And that's the biggest difference between good debt and bad debt. But yet most people sign up to have bad debt. Why is that? First of all, let's look at the student loan thing. So many people go to college, they get themselves into these student loan debts and then find out later on that it's going to be very difficult to pay this off for a multitude of reasons, because life is a lot more expensive than the money that they think they're going to be making at their job, or sometimes they can't even find the job in the field that they went to school for and just end up working a regular job anyways, and they're stuck with this massive bill. And even if you do get the job you want that makes a lot of money, like say you're a doctor, that's great. But now you have $120,000 in student loan debt that's probably going to take 15 years to pay off, or maybe longer. So, it comes at a huge cost. Same thing with the credit card debt. Everybody wants to have everything right now, and they just put it on the credit card. Let's forget about it. I want it today. Who cares what it costs? I'll pay the minimum payment when the bill starts rolling in. And people just go on like that for years and years and just rack up all this debt. They destroy their credit, they destroy their financial future, and sometimes they even destroy their families by doing this. So it's very sad. And the interesting thing is, so many people look at having good debt as a huge risk. Like, oh, you're going to invest in real estate? Isn't that really risky? Can't you lose a lot of money? What if the tenants don't pay the rent? All this stuff, right? And yet, they're not looking at the risk that they're taking from having a $50,000 student loan debt or having $20,000 in credit card debt. You don't think that's a risk? You don't think you're going to be paying for that in so many more ways than one in life? You know how much that slows you down or delays your financial future, having these burdens that you have to deal with? I mean, isn't that a risk? You're risking your financial future by not having the things you want to have because you have these ridiculous obligations. Now, one of the unfortunate reasons that a lot of people are broke is they learn how to save money, which is good, which you do need to do, but they never learn to invest it. And that's where you have a big problem when it comes to money, because you basically cannot outsave inflation unless you make a ton of money and have very low expenses. That's probably the only scenario where people can actually save up enough money every single year to kind of beat inflation, right? Right now, the inflation rate is at 7% if you believe the CPI numbers. So what does that mean? Say you make $100,000 a year. Well, every year now, you would need to make at least $107,000 to just break even to keep up with inflation, right? So if you want to beat inflation, then every year you're going to have to be increasing your income by more than 7% to be technically beating inflation. And a lot of people aren't increasing their incomes by 7 to 10% every year. Because if you are, that's the only way you can beat inflation, by actually just saving money. Even then, you're still losing a big chunk of it, but you're coming out ahead. But the easier way to do it, instead of try to outsave inflation, which most people cannot, is to just invest it. And I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do when it comes to investing, because this is not financial advice. This is just my opinion on things. But the typical routes that people will take, most people will just invest in the stock market. They'll have a 401k with their job and they'll invest like that. Or people will open up their own brokerage account and invest in different ETFs, things like the S&P 500 fund or the Vanguard funds that make a strong return in the long run. And it's a very simple and passive way to invest money. Now, I personally don't love that method. I like the fact that it's very passive and you don't have to do anything, but I don't like how little control you have over everything. Unless you're a day trader and you're really watching the stock market from day to day to take advantage of all the swings, and you know how to short different stocks and make all these bets essentially like you're at the casino, then you're going to have downturns and you're going to lose a lot of money when the downturns come, like we saw in 2022. A lot of people lost 20% of the value of their portfolio just last year. So that's a tough pill to swallow, and I don't like that. I personally like real estate better because it does tend to rise with inflation and it produces cash flow. So every single month you make some money off the property. So I like that. Being in the real estate business all this time, and after reading the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, that's my preferred investment. But real estate has a lot of downsides too. It does come with a ton of problems. It's very expensive to buy and to own and to operate, and you do have tenant issues, you have repair issues, and you guys have seen the myriad of expenses and problems that we've been talking about here on the channel that comes along with real estate. And for that reason, I feel like it's probably not for most people. Most people just don't want to or not able to deal with the headaches that it presents. Another thing that's very untraditional but people can do is invest in different types of businesses. You can be part owner of a business. Like if you know somebody that's looking to start a business and they need funding, you could be part owner of the business, different things like that. So like I said, I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, but once you kind of open this can of worms and you start looking into different ways to invest your money, you'll quickly realize that there are a lot of options out there, and it just depends on which route you want to take. And usually you can't take them all. You kind of have to pick and choose, which direction am I going to go with things, and just kind of stick with it. Another huge reason everybody's broke: people buy way too many things that they don't need, guys. Just look at, all these pictures you guys see online of the amount of packages from Amazon and stuff sitting on people's doorsteps nowadays, and just mindlessly going through the store and putting things in the cart that you just don't need to buy. But hey, that looks interesting and I'm getting a little thrill out of this right now, so hey, let's spend the extra 20 bucks. But that extra 20 bucks here and there once a week adds up over time. And that's just another thing that can easily be changed, a very simple behavior change that can really add up in the long run. Another simple behavior change is stop playing the lottery, guys. I mean, let's be realistic. Do people win? Yes. Is it likely to be you? No. So even if it's just like $5-10 bucks a week on the lottery, okay? Say it's 10. That's $40 a month. Over a year, that's $400. Keep going like that. You see where that's going. See how that's going to add up over time. And some people don't mind taking the risk and hoping that they're going to be able to get that big win, but the odds of it happening is just so low that for most people it's just a waste of money.
Look at this house, everyone. This is yet another flip. They dropped the price $375K. That's a price cut on a house that used to be $6.35 million. Now it's $5.975. They bought this place back in February of 2021 for $2.8 million, and now they want $5.9. Anybody want that? Go ahead, make your offers.
Plus, here's the sad reality about people that play the lottery. Even the ones who win, about half of the people that actually do hit the jackpot and win, they go bankrupt within a couple years, guys, and they end up right back where they started. And why is that? It goes back to the very first point that I made in this video. That is the root of the reason why everyone is broke, is that people do not have the financial education. So if you give someone a lot of money that doesn't know what to do with the money, or how to put the money to work, or how to make the money last for several lifetimes, then it's going to be inevitable that that person is going to lose it all, because they're just going to be following the same financial habits they had before they were a lottery winner, only now it's on a much grander scale, so you just spend a lot more until it's all gone. So it's definitely not the path that most people should be looking at. At least take that $40 a month and make an investment, guys. Put it in the stock market, buy gold and silver, save for the down payment on your future home, whatever. Do something useful with it that is guaranteed to go into some sort of investment versus just flushing it down the toilet. The next thing that's very simple that people can do to kind of avoid going broke is just having a simple monthly budget. Most people just have no idea how much they're spending every month. And when you get that wake-up call and you realize, wow, I'm actually spending $100 more every month than I actually make, and that's why I have $5,000 in credit card debt. Or I make $5,000 a month, but I'm spending $4,800, so I'm really not saving as much as I would like to. How can I be saving $500 a month instead of $200 a month? And that's another simple behavior change that can really shift your expectations and what happens with money in the long run for you. And so when you have that budget, it kind of gives you a goal. It gives you something to shoot for. Like, well, I'm not meeting the expectations that I would like to put on myself right now, but maybe in 2 or 3 months, I'll start saving an extra 100. And then in 6 months, I'll be saving, an extra 200, and so on and so forth. And it gives you something to work for. It kind of gamifies saving and investing and turns it into a fun thing. At least that's how I look at it. And this one here is, I think, something that's affecting a lot of people today, especially because we have social media and, once we started seeing the MTV cribs come out, 20 years ago, and seeing the lifestyle, the rich and famous, and all the reality shows started popping up, it started planting this seed in people's mind that this is how you need to live, and this is how, my life needs to look in order to be rich, right? And so that kind of leads to having unrealistic expectations of what your lifestyle should look like. And the problem is, average everyday people try to mimic this lifestyle in any possible way they can that easily leads them to being broke. Like, oh my God, I know I'm never gonna be able to have this $5 million house over here, but if I save enough money, I can have at least that Gucci bag or the Prada purse, whatever. I can save enough for that, or just put on the credit card, and it looks like I got something. I'm rich, or I have the designer sunglasses, or I need to have that brand new Beamer and pay $1,200 a month because it makes me look cool, it makes me look rich. But in reality, all it's doing is making you more broke because you're spending so much money to maintain a lifestyle that you really can't afford. It's bad enough when you're playing the game of keeping up with the Joneses, but when you're trying to play the game of keeping up with the lifestyle, the rich and famous, that's definitely a guarantee that you're gonna be losing the money game, because only the top 1% can afford this lifestyle, guys. So you can't look at this and say, I need this to feel good about my life, or I need this to feel rich or look rich or impress other people so it looks like I'm getting somewhere in life. I mean, all you're doing is hurting yourself and your financial future by doing this. And one thing I'm really hoping that this video does for people who watch it is kind of shift your expectations or your definition of what being rich really means. Because here's something that I want people to remember, a little saying, just like I remember the sayings from the book. Well, remember this saying: you don't need to be rich to be rich. Well, what do you mean, Michael? Well, it's pretty simple. The way I see it is, if you have a 6-month emergency fund saved up, you can afford a job loss or unexpected expense, that's the 6-month emergency fund. If you have your health, you're in good physical condition, you don't have any major health issues, if you spend less money than you make, and you have good relationships with your family and your friends, and you have food in the refrigerator and on your plate every night, and you have a good place to live that is safe and affordable, if you have all of those things, you are rich, guys, let me tell you. Because just take a look around at, third world countries and places that are poorer than the US, since we are basically the richest country in the world. Look at how people live. Look at their living conditions. If you compare your lifestyle to what those people have, you're rich. And that's how you have to start thinking about money and what being rich actually means, because being able to satisfy all of your human needs and then being able to have things that you want in addition to that satisfy you, that make you happy, you're already rich. And to me, anything beyond that is really icing on the cake, It really is. And that's how I look at things now, and it makes me very grateful for everything that I have in life. So next time you see somebody's Instagram post where they're half naked in Aruba, or you see the glass bottom hotel room that they're staying in, or this beautiful prestigious mountaintop retreat, and think, why can't this be me? And these guys have everything and I have nothing. Remember what I just said at the end of this video, that you don't have to be rich to be rich. You need to figure out what being rich for your standards and your lifestyle means, because I think if you're able to meet all of those things that I just said, then you're already rich. And then it's okay to strive to have a little bit more beyond that with what you think is attainable or what you even want to have, guys, but it needs to be within reason. And where people go wrong is they think, oh, I need to have way more than that. I'm not satisfied with this much, so I need to start playing the lottery, and I need to start charging the credit card. I need to just start buying all this stuff so I look cool and I look rich. But just don't fall into this trap, because if you can do everything I just said in this video, it's a guarantee that you will not be broke, because this is why everyone else is broke. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the bell notification down below. YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. And if you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.